What if the real competitive advantage for a region isn't incentives or infrastructure, but it's the ability to work together across boundaries, jurisdictions, and agendas? Welcome back to CRE with CBC Worldwide, where we explore the ideas and leadership strategies shaping the future of commercial real estate. I'm Dan Spiegel, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Coldwell Banker Commercial, and today's conversation is going to be about regional collaboration as a growth strategy. At Coldwell Banker Commercial, we recently held our global conference in Kansas City, Missouri, earlier this year, and it really opened my eyes to how a region can be collaborative across states, across jurisdictions, all for the betterment of the region as a whole. And I want to explore that today with our special guest, who really is an expert in how that all came to be. If you don't know, Kansas City is hosting the World Cup. I think that's in a month and a half now, something like that, June of this year. One of the cities, I should say, hosting the World Cup. It is the smallest metro in North America selected by FIFA for World Cup matches in 2026, and that was a big feat. That's just not something that happens overnight. That kind of thing takes a lot of effort across municipalities, economic development, state government, local government, all those kind of things coming together. And as a commercial real estate professional, I know that's not common in all areas across the country. I happen to live in the Chicago metropolitan area, where we battle, pretty clearly between Indiana, Illinois. Maybe it's a sense of pride or not, but it seems like what I saw in Kansas City was a different level of cooperation that really is working for the betterment of the entire region. So to unpack how this actually works, I've invited Jonathan Knecht, Senior Vice President of Marketing for the Kansas City Area Development Council. Jonathan and his team are responsible for shaping the regional identity that transcends borders and turning collaboration into competitive advantage. So let's dive in. Jonathan, welcome to the CRE with CBC Worldwide podcast.
Thanks, Dan. Happy to be here with you.
Well, yeah. So before we get into regional strategy, I know there's a whole slew of things we can talk about, and you and I were talking about in the past. Just give us a sense of your background. I know you've been with the agency for a while, but how did you find your way into economic development, marketing in particular, and what drew you to the challenge of branding not just a city but a region? Like, tell me a little bit about your background and the path to where you are today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Again, happy to be here. It's funny. When I joined you for your conference last month, you guys picked a walk-up song for me, which was "Carry On Wayward Son." And I loved that song growing up as a kid in the 70s. The band is Kansas, for those of you out there who don't are familiar with it. But it really kind of struck a chord with me, one of those kind of serendipitous moments. I'm originally from the New England area. I grew up in Connecticut, Massachusetts. And in college, I met a girl from Kansas City. And so I think there's probably a good bunch of us here who have maybe found our way here that way. But I finished college here at the Kansas City Art Institute, and I really am a illustrator, painter, wanting to tell stories visually. I think it was really the core instinct I had to chase, and that led me to stints at Hallmark Cards and a couple of ad agencies in town, including starting my own. And when I did that, I was acquainted with KCADC, the Area Development Council, and what an amazing mission they have, which is helping market this entire region to the rest of the world to attract businesses and attract talented people to come here and really realize what a unique kind of footprint we have in the world. And not to fast forward too much, but what's coming here in a few weeks with the World Cup is a real great example of that. So diving in, and I joined KCADC. I was doing work for them from the outside, and then these things kind of snowballed a little bit, and we cooked up this idea about 22 years ago with my mentor, who I came to work for, a guy named Mark Meany. And if any of you are familiar with him, he worked in the Peoria, Illinois area for quite a while before he came to Kansas City. And I had the thrill of working with him and building this team here at KCADC for the last couple decades. And really looking forward to what's next.
Yeah, that's exciting. And it's interesting that you have a background in art and illustration, because I think part of what you and the organization has accomplished is painting a picture and telling a story, right?
Absolutely.
So why don't we dive into that? I mean, again, maybe I'm just reflecting in my own metro area, but most areas, cities, they struggle to some degree to market themselves. I mean, there are some really well-known marketing campaigns, the I Love New York, or the what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Those things that are truly memorable, I guess, for good and bad. But how do you start that whole process of taking a multi-state, multi-jurisdiction region and telling a single coherent story, while being respectful of the various identities within that region?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been forced on the Kansas City region. Our state line between Kansas and Missouri really runs right through the heart of the metro. And one of the things that I worked on, 20 years ago with Martin, was how do we take that two and make it one? And so we had a campaign we released back in 2004 that was 1KC. And so putting our arms around our entire region and making that our central message before we even get to those assets and features and benefits of our region we want to communicate. But right off the bat, let people know this is one market, and one market that competes with all these other amazing markets around the country. I mean, we have an absolutely unbelievable country. Our major metros from all four corners and even often our extended regions are fabulous places to live. Mm-hmm. We all have amazing opportunities in America, and we have to all compete with each other for the commerce that is flying all over the world. Right. And we have to get out there and net as much of that as we can into our markets. So again, understanding ourselves as one, competing with that bigger global marketplace is, I think, what has helped fuel our regional cooperation. And seeing ourselves on the same team as 1KC, I think, has really helped us tell that story. But we have to say that first. We have to really communicate our region right off the bat.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, for those, I've been with Coldwell Banker Commercial, leading it now for 7 years. And those that are listening that are part of our network will know one of the first things I identified was we have to go to market as one voice. Right. And I did a little exercise at a conference where I had everyone, shout out their individual name. And then I said, now shout out Coldwell Banker Commercial. And it sounds so much stronger and clearer in one coordinated voice. Sort of the same, just an analogy to what you're doing, right? The region is stronger, even though there are different priorities, amongst the states and municipalities. The region from a marketing standpoint is that much stronger when it speaks as one voice and one image to the outside world. Is that fair? Is that a fair analogy?
And not to, yeah, absolutely. I'll pile on with another one. There are amazing singular voices out there, right? If you think of listening to someone sing, amazing soloists, they're great. But how unbelievable is hearing a choir sing? Right. And there are, the low end is hitting and the high end is hitting and the midtones are hitting. That's what a region working together needs to do. And to do that, those individual parts need to be played. So our individual communities and municipalities all need to do what they do well. And then when the opportunity comes along to work together as a big region, to go after those big projects, to bring those big opportunities to your region in totality, creates that opportunity for shared opportunity. And again, you want to go back and forth. It's great to be a soloist, right? It's also great to be a part of a choir. Right. So we really want both of those going on all the time.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And by the way, Kansas City has a beautiful, is it the Symphony Hall or Opera House? I can't remember what it is downtown. Which one is Symphony?
It's the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts. It has two big halls, one custom designed for a symphony. It's like all wood, and it's really, the room is like an instrument, and then a bigger hall that can host all sorts of performance.
Right. Yeah. No, so I only mentioned that because of the analogy you made. It just happens to be a very striking element.
Absolutely.
It's a striking element of the downtown, I guess I'll call it skyline, because it's a very striking, architecturally interesting building.
Beautiful clamshell style. Yeah.
Exactly. Super cool. But let's just, it's okay. So I get the mission, speak in one voice, present yourself from a position of strength and unity. But tell me a little bit about how the organization works with all the, yes, you go to market as one entity, but you still have all those individual interests of, I imagine the largest city is Kansas City. You have counties, you have municipalities, I imagine, that are quite small. Obviously, you have two different states. How do you get that culturally all to come together so they coordinate for the benefit of the whole that we spoke about, but at the same time don't feel like they're losing something as individual jurisdictions?
Yeah. Yeah. Our CEO, Tim Cowden, has a phrase he loves, which is that we are a coalition of the willing. And the ability to join that team, again, to pursue net new to the region. I think kind of that's the real connecting point, is that we're chasing net new. Now, our individual jurisdictions are all obviously wanting to improve their product, and they're wanting to create opportunities in all of their localities, and they do a great job of that every day. But then there are also those larger missions of finding those new opportunities to bring to the region. So I think that kind of shared mission to attract net new into the market is what really helps that. And people understand that. And there's a story when I first started here back in the early 2000s, the France family was expanding a new NASCAR track in the country, and it was highly sought after. Lots of regions wanted what is now the Kansas Speedway over in the Village West Legends Kansas City, Kansas area. But I heard stories when I came here. It had just been awarded the previous year. And some of those final pitches included a delegation from Missouri and a delegation from Kansas. And those officials were both pitching their location with everything they had. And when they were finished, they said, if you don't pick our spot, pick the other side, pick the Kansas side or the Missouri side, knowing that will still benefit our region.
Right.
They would love to win it for themselves. And that's a good example of how those kind of high stakes, opportunities can be attacked with a shared commitment.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. I mean, is there a particular organizational framework that makes that? Because you got to, it's the mentality's part of it, but then you have to, have, I don't know if it's through voting or however the organization is run, but you got to have something that helps facilitate that mentality of a win for one is a win for all.
I think it's a constant battle. It's constantly in flux. Those phone calls and texts. My CEO, Tim, is a master at that, and keeping that coalition alive. A coalition is fluid, and a lot of those participants come and go from elected offices. So, you constantly need to be feeding that coalition to build that, to make it a framework. And I think that's your question. How does that framework work? And I think it works through hard work and really working it to keep it strong. And it's always in flux.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I take it from what you've said. It also takes leadership and sort of purpose and central vision to constantly keep the participants focused on the end goal, which is growth for the region, right? That's the goal.
That's right. You want the macro and the micro, and you want those to work together, and those leaders to share that vision. I think both big and small.
I don't know if you have experience with this, but do you see this? I mean, obviously this is a commercial real estate podcast, and we talk to a lot of investors and developers. I can think of all kinds of situations where you might have a large industrial developer looking for a plot of land along a major interstate that could be either state, right? And maybe not in the core of the city, but on the edge. Do you work with developers? Do they work with your group, economic development? How does the economic development for Kansas work with economic development for Missouri? Because you have different incentives they could be doing. How does that all come together from a little bit of a real estate perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we really try and communicate for our economic development organizations, and not just ours, but the ones across our region, to be really momentum builders and information sharers. So I think the real estate community that gets involved with it realizes, this is an opportunity to extend your team, to know what's going on around the region. Of course, when projects are fluid with our organization, with the smaller EDOs in the communities, these are all under project names, but the real estate folks, you want to know what's going on. You want to know what the momentum is. I was just checking in with Chris Gutierrez, who runs our industrial group here, and 26 is moving. A lot of things were pent up in 25, and starting to see some spec development come along again, and staying attuned to those trends, I think, is what's real helpful for the real estate folks to, wherever they are, is to stay in tune with their economic development groups and understand that they're extensions of the team and helping everyone close those deals.
Yeah. And to some degree, from a commercial real estate standpoint, it follows where population growth is. So wherever you're successful, be it bringing more people to live in the downtown area or to Overland Park in the suburbs or whatever it may be, the real estate's going to follow, right? It'll be new retail development or distribution or office, perhaps less so today, but the development will follow. So if you're successful at attracting and retaining population, something that the commercial real estate industry likes more than stability. Like they know where the growth channels are and so forth, and they know, okay, we want to build more multifamily. I noticed downtown, first of all, I noticed a number of lots that could be developed, but aside from that, there's quite a bit of multifamily development. I can't tell you which direction geographically it is, but coming out of downtown. So that's a sign that at least in that city, at least, it's definitely working. So it was very cool.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. And we have had a good positive momentum with net migration into our market.
Yeah.
I think throughout the Midwest since the pandemic, we've been up near the top of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of good growth. And you're right. It's where the feet hit, there's opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I imagine from a home science residential standpoint, affordability is probably a big selling point in Kansas City, as it is in much of the central part of the country.
It's hanging in there.
Yeah, it's hanging in there. I know. No place in the world, no place in the U.S. or the world is cheap, but it's all relative to what you can get elsewhere. All right, so let's dive in a little bit. I mentioned at the opening of the podcast, the World Cup, which is starting June. Yeah. Is it June, right? And it's a coup for North America to have the World Cup. It's fantastic. And it's certainly fantastic for your city to be a host city, base camp city, and you're alongside New York, LA, Philadelphia. I mean, some really big markets, right? So that's super cool. So from your perspective, I know you weren't, there were other agencies involved and so forth, but from your perspective, what did that selection process reveal about the region's ability to collaborate, to plan, and to execute? Because I think for the woman that spoke about it took a decade or more. I can't remember now. It's quite a long process. So what did it reveal about the region's ability to act as one in marketing itself, again, as the smallest metropolitan area hosting World Cup games?
Yeah, soccer in Kansas City has really taken hold in the last couple of decades. It really started, I don't want to tell the whole history story, but, Lamar Hunt was instrumental in bringing soccer from the rest of the world into America and helping getting those original soccer leagues off the ground. The Wizards were Kansas City's team here that played in Arrowhead. But soccer has really taken a hold, and our KC Current women's team, with the first truly dedicated stadium to a women's sports team in any sport, is really an example of how culturally Kansas City's embraced soccer. I think that helped, but then the forces that Kathy Nelson at our sports commission and many folks put together, again, multi-years to pursue these opportunities. I think we demonstrated that love of the game, and size be damned, we are ready to host sport on a global scale. So I think that's what that really represents for us. We've had some advancements in our assets here with sports, with the Chiefs opting to build a new stadium over on the Kansas side, right by that speedway I mentioned a few minutes ago. And then the Kansas City Royals just announcing this week a redevelopment of what's called Crown Center and the Hallmark headquarters here in the heart of Kansas City in the Crossroads district. Both of those stadiums being upgraded and improved for the future, for those future opportunities. So you can imagine future sporting events. Kathy and all of the folks that come together are already pitching those opportunities that could come. And all of those big assets really play a role in advancing those opportunities. A lot of these wouldn't happen if we didn't collectively get together and improve our airport. So these assets are just major growth enablers, and a new airport and new stadiums. The World Cup, again, wouldn't be here if we didn't make those improvements and have that long-term desire to share our love of sport, share our love of soccer, invite the world to come here. Again, there's some long-term commitments and lots of hard work to make that happen. But Kansas City's ready for it. We're pumped. It's going to be super exciting. I kind of feel like I'm hearing a lot of the bigger markets complain about it and groan about it. And I guess there's $150 train tickets to get to the New York Stadium.
Yeah.
Of course, Chicago, you guys are just sitting this one
I
out.
I know.
We know you'll be around for another one.
It's painful. Yeah, no, I did hear the story of the train tickets in New Jersey for, I don't know, it was like $150 or something to get to the stadium. Yeah. And then the bus fares are up. But anyway, that's their decision. That's their call. You got your own to worry about. But yeah, I think you made a good point that economic growth and in turn, obviously, commercial real estate development takes infrastructure investment. That's certainly my perspective. Huge step in the right direction with the airport. It was desperately needed in Kansas City, and you got a great new front door, if you will. Mm-hmm. I don't know what other improvements there have been. I assume what you're referring to on the Royal Stadium. I didn't hear that announcement, but I assume it's downtown. It's going to be kind of an urban stadium. Is that
it is. It's downtown.
Okay.
So if you know where Union Station is in our downtown, just a little south of downtown, a little to the east of there, Hallmark Cards has had a huge campus for their headquarters for decades and decades, with a whole kind of mixed use, retail and hotel and office around it. And actually the Hallmark headquarters is going to, get replaced by the Royal Stadium and really revitalize this whole district here. So it's exciting.
That's super exciting. Are they going to preserve the waterfalls, the water features in the outfield? Because that's always been a special part of Kansas City.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are some things that must move with the stadium, and I think our big crown scoreboard and fountains in the outfield are necessary.
It's definitely good for TV watching, right? It's like I think the only stadium in America that's got fountains in the outfield, so it's pretty unique. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, I thank you for touching also on the football and baseball aspects. I know that's a part. That's interesting, right? It's like a 50-50 split. One's going to the Missouri side, one's going to the Kansas side. As I said, in my own metropolitan area, that would be, it would be heresy, right? We'll see what happens with the Chicago Bears. But anyway, that's a whole nother story of a different region in the country. Do you see, a lot of our listeners here are commercial real estate people. I mean, how many organizations work together as part of economic development? So you're kind of the marketing arm. I get that. But how many other, between state, local, whatever, special, like the sports authority or whatever you call that, how many organizations are working towards growth in the city, in the metropolitan area, I should say?
That's a really good question. Every city does it differently. And, some really consolidate with their chambers and different groups, their visitor and tourist group. Sometimes they're all embedded in one organization and sometimes they're separate. That's how we've done it over the years in Kansas City. And again, I think our two-state market has kind of necessitated some of these regional civic groups. So we're kind of the sales and marketing guys in the day-to-day. We have, of course, the Sports Commission and Visit KC that are out chasing those conferences like Coldwell Banker Commercial and having those folks come to town, and then these big sporting events. So that's visitors and tourists and conferences. We have a group called the Civic Council of Greater KC. Those guys are a little bit more of our C-level star chamber that is looking on those long-range projects. And we have a group called the Mid-America Regional Council that works with federal government and facilitating grants and making sure we have clean air and clean water. So all of these groups, we all communicate, we all talk together, we share some of these big goals. And then of course our KC Chamber really is that like kind of home regionally for a lot of that activity. They help kind of lead product improvement. How does small business do better? How do we create better opportunities for you name it, in our industrial sectors, our commercial sectors. And then of course our startup world. I know every city is channeling our startup worlds, and that's every community's next big headquarters. Hallmark cards started in a shoebox in the back seat of Joyce Hall's car when he was 18 years old. These things grow up to be huge powerhouses that drive opportunities for all of the people that live in our cities and regions. So again, you want all of these things to be going on at the same time. You want to be fishing and attracting the next big job creator in your market. You also want your startup world to be finding the next big job creator and building them at home. So that economic gardening, as a lot of people like to talk to it, you want to be doing it all at the same time for a region to really be moving forward.
Wow, it's a great story and quite amazing. As I said, a lot of people listening are people that were real estate people that work with economic development, but there's so many layers in what you're describing in terms, because your economic development is local, it's city, it's county, it's state, and then you have these other authorities, you have grant organizations, you have, that's a lot of coordination. Is there any particular, learning that you want to share just from your perspective of your tenure there, of just what did you do right? Maybe what you did wrong that you had to correct. Just like how to for people who are listening, think like, I wish my area worked this way. What should they be telling people? What could they be telling people to say, hey, we could learn from what Kansas City has done?
Yeah, I think you just need to keep trying, because time is fluid. Opportunities are fluid. You could try something. I know we, back in the .com era, we had a couple of opportunities that were like, we need to, attract more tech business. And we had Sprint was based here. So we had this huge footprint in telecom, and let's really, really chase that. And then, next thing you know, the hard landlines are gone. And so it's a whole different tech story you need to tell. So just be flexible and grow with your community and your opportunities. Just because you go all in on something doesn't mean the ground doesn't shift underneath you. And you need to, I know, Dan, one of your favorite words is pivot. You need to pivot and take care of that chase that next opportunity. So I think just being nimble and being, don't get too rigid in your ways, be willing to flex and flow. That's what our economy does every day, right? Up and down. And being ready and being confident in you're putting your best effort in. And again, pulling that team together, getting people, teamwork, this is a team sport. It's collaborative. There's, as much as we want those great soloists, if I call back to my choir analogy earlier, yeah, we want those great soloists, but they also can't always do it all by themselves. You need to reach out, be willing to expand your network, expand your team, get people on board, go meet people. It's really, this is a human business. AI is not going to take over building relationships. I don't want to have a relationship with a robot. I want to have a relationship with people. And those relationships, as everyone listening knows, that's what closes the deals, and that's what makes growth happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you just said really, speaks to the heart of commercial real estate. Relationships, being able to pivot, being able to, just to see the next opportunity. I do like the word pivot because as, sort of what I was conveying from the conference and I continue to think about is just the world is changing faster and faster, right? I mean, today in the commercial side, let's say everyone's chasing data centers, but, the technology behind data centers could change in a heartbeat. And what today demands land and water, whatever, tomorrow could be obsolete, right? We don't know. And you just have to constantly be thinking and fast on your feet and not stuck in your ways, which is one of the things you were saying, right? Don't get too sold on one concept because it won't be there tomorrow. To your story of Sprint, same deal, right? I remember when, Sprint was there again, my belief is the world's changing faster and faster. To your point, relationships are what matters. AI is fantastic for analyzing information, but you still have to know people. You still have to have something of value. You still have to, as I like to say, relationships are built with your head and your heart. You have to have something of both. And the heart only comes from a human, not from a computer. So appreciate that. All right, Jonathan, it's been a great conversation. Totally. I feel like we could go on for hours because I really do enjoy it. But tell me, if people want to just learn more about what your organization does, best to go to a website. And if they want to connect with you, how do they do it? So why don't you just share that information?
Sure. So we just upgraded our web platform for all of our initiatives, and that's onekc.org.
Okay.
So onekc.org. You can get contact for all of our groups. We're promoting the animal health sector hugely here that we're a global home for. Our industrial sector, we have a marketing arm called KC Smartport that really helps promote that industrial advantage from the center of the country here. We have a group called KC Global Design that touts our architecture, engineering, and construction sector here, which is top 5 in the country. I think anytime the 30th largest market is top 10 in anything, that's something we want to get out and trumpet and fly the flags. Most of the big sports stadiums around the country, in many of the markets here, Yankee Stadium was redesigned in Kansas City. Citi Field was redesigned in Kansas City. The O2 Arena in London was designed in Kansas City. So we have some major, Popula Beach OK, some major architecture firms here that specialize in sports architecture. And again, something that to tie back to the World Cup, I believe it's 13 of the 16 stadiums that will be activated between Canada, America, and Mexico have some design elements contributed from Kansas City firms. So that could be architecture, engineering, fabrication. So Kansas City's playing in the World Cup in more ways than just hosting.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. So I totally appreciate that. I imagine people can find you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And we'll put your name in the show notes because it's pronounced Knecht, just like we are connecting now, but it spells a little bit differently.
Connecting the dots. You got it.
Yeah. So that's fine. So I really appreciate the time, Jonathan. I mean, a couple of key takeaways for me. First of all, for listeners who are just like, how could I do that in my region, or how could I encourage that? I think there's some great shared experiences here that could be shared in terms of one vision, speaking in one voice, constantly focused on that collaboration, because it can come apart, right? And it sounds like you've had leadership for quite a while now that's been focusing on holding it together. And collaboration across jurisdictions is difficult. So it's not effortless. It takes constant work, but it is achievable. And kudos again to the entire team who was responsible for both winning the World Cup bid, as well as getting those football and baseball teams to move to newer facilities, because inevitably in sports today, 20 years old, 30 years old is an old facility today. Unfortunately, it is what it is, but it also is an economic development engine. You have clear branding, that one KC, fantastic. I think that's a great message. I don't think every city can, or every region can speak to that. So, KC, unique spot in the country, center of the country, heart of the country, however you characterize it. But it offers a blueprint from this standpoint. That was really the whole purpose of this podcast conversation, to talk about how working together can yield some better results as a whole if one just puts the individual egos down, or quiets the individual voices, to your analogy, so the choir can be heard, but does not disrespect those individual voices is all. So Jonathan, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic guest.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
So if you've enjoyed this episode of CRE with CBC Worldwide, be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcast. For more insights, conversations shaping the commercial real estate industry, visit us at cbcworldwide.com. Until next time, this is Dan Spiegel, Coldwell Banker Commercial. Take care.